You are waiting for the moment that will finally prove what you are made of. Some great test, some fire, but the test is already happening. It is happening right now, in the conversation you are avoiding and the truth you are not saying. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining, what does courage look like in ordinary life, not just crisis? Let me tell you what most people think courage is. They think it is the soldier on the battlefield, the person running into a burning building. They are waiting for a dramatic moment to prove something. And while they wait, they lie to their spouse. They stay silent in a meeting where something wrong is happening. They choose the comfortable answer over the true one every single day. That is not an absence of opportunity. That is a failure of nerve dressed up as patience. Courage is not waiting in reserve. It is the thing you are supposed to be doing right now.
I would not dismiss the battlefield image so quickly. There is a reason that image of the hero under fire is so persistent across every culture, every mythology. It is not an accident. It is pointing at something real inside the human psyche, something archetypal. The question is not whether that image is wrong. The question is whether people have understood what it is actually an image of. The warrior in the myth is not brave because of external danger. He is brave because he goes toward what he fears most inside himself. The outer crisis is a mirror for an inner one. The reason ordinary courage is so hard is not that people are cowards. It is that they have not yet named what they are truly afraid of.
You are both starting in the wrong place. You are asking what courage looks like, but you have not yet asked what makes something difficult in the first place. A person who avoids a hard conversation does not avoid it because they lack some special quality called courage. They avoid it because something in the situation has not yet become clear to them. Clarity and courage are not as separate as you are making them.
Clarity. You want to talk about clarity? Fine, let us be clear. What is within your control? Your choices, your words, your willingness to say the thing that is true. What is not within your control? How the other person reacts, whether they approve of you, whether they are grateful. The person who avoids the hard conversation is not confused. They are afraid of losing something they should not be clinging to in the first place. That is not a clarity problem. That is a judgment problem. And the cure for it is action, not more reflection.
And that is precisely where I think you create unnecessary suffering. You say, just act, as if the fear were simply an error in reasoning that can be corrected by willpower. But fear is not always irrational. Sometimes the fear is pointing at something true. Sometimes the person avoiding the conversation has a very real and unexamined belief about what will happen if they are truly seen. That belief has a history. It was formed somewhere. If you simply override it with discipline, you have not solved the problem. You have driven it deeper underground and it will resurface, usually in a way that is far more disruptive.
You are describing the same person from different angles and arriving at different prescriptions. That is worth noticing. Epictetus says the person must act. Jung says the person must understand. But what if the person is already doing both of those things and still nothing moves? What if the problem is not will and not insight, but something simpler? The person is pushing against the situation rather than working with what the situation is actually offering.
What the situation is offering. Lao Tzu. A man is about to say something dishonest to protect himself. What is the situation offering him at that moment? An easy exit. And you are suggesting he should work with that?
I am suggesting you are assuming the only options are to push hard or to take the easy exit. That is not always true. There is a third way that neither of you are describing. Sometimes the honest thing comes through when the person stops forcing it, stops rehearsing it, stops bracing for impact, and simply speaks from where they actually are. Not as a performance of courage, just as the next true thing.
That is an interesting point, and I want to push on it. What you are describing sounds like spontaneity, and there is something real in that. But most people who avoid hard conversations are not avoiding them because they are over-rehearsing. They are avoiding them because there is a part of themselves they have not yet acknowledged. The shadow, to use a technical term, though I do not mean it technically here, is the part of us that we have decided is not acceptable. The anger we will not admit to, the need we are ashamed of. The fear we have labeled weakness. When that stays hidden, it controls the conversation invisibly. It shapes every word before the person opens their mouth. Real courage in ordinary life begins with looking at that, not with willing yourself to say the hard thing, with being honest enough to see what is driving you before you speak.
I will grant you this much. A person who does not know why they are speaking will often say the wrong thing, even when they are trying to say the right thing. Self-knowledge has a place. But Jung, you keep making self-examination the prerequisite for action, and I have watched that logic trap people for decades. There is always more to examine. There is always another layer. At some point, the examination becomes its own avoidance. At some point, you must simply open your mouth and say the true thing, incompletely, imperfectly, without having resolved every interior conflict first.
I do not disagree that action must eventually occur. What I am questioning is the quality of the action. A person who speaks before they have done any honest self-examination will often find that they have said something technically true but emotionally dishonest. They said the words, they did not say the thing. And the other person in that conversation knows the difference, even if they cannot articulate it. Ordinary courage is not just the act of speaking. It is the willingness to be present to what is actually happening in you while you speak. That is a form of courage people rarely name.
You are both circling something you have not said directly. Ordinary courage is uncomfortable not because it is rare. It is uncomfortable because it happens in front of other people. You can be honest with yourself in private and feel quite fine. But to be honest in front of someone who might judge you, disagree with you, or be hurt by what you say, that is where the body resists. That is where the ordinary becomes hard.
Yes. And where does that resistance come from? From caring too much what they think. From treating their opinion of you as if it were within your control. It is not. You do not control how you are received. You only control what you say and whether it is true. The moment you accept that their reaction is not your jurisdiction, the conversation becomes simpler. Not easy, simpler, because now you only have one job.
But people are not wired the way you are describing. Human beings are fundamentally relational. The fear of rejection is not a philosophical error. It is wired into the nervous system. A child who was punished for honesty or who learned that being seen led to abandonment does not simply update their beliefs when they encounter Stoic philosophy. That fear is encoded below the level of conscious reasoning. To dismiss it as a failure of judgment is to misunderstand what you are dealing with.
Jung, I want to ask you something. You say the fear is encoded and must be understood before it can be addressed. But you have seen people who understand their fear completely and still do nothing. Understanding is not the same as moving.
You are right. Understanding is a necessary condition, not a sufficient one. There is a moment after genuine self-examination where the person has to make a choice. I am not arguing against choice. I am arguing for preparation. If you go into that choice without any self-knowledge, you are likely to repeat the same pattern in new clothing.
And if you prepare forever, you never choose at all. This is what I am saying. There is a point where the preparation becomes the problem. Where the person is using psychological inquiry the way other people use busyness, to avoid the moment of actual decision. I have seen people spend years in self-examination who would have been better served by 3 honest conversations they were too afraid to have.
What you are both missing is this. The person you are describing, the one who avoids and delays and examines and still does not move, they are not lacking courage or insight. They are fighting themselves. And when you fight yourself, nothing moves. Not because you are weak, because you are divided. Ordinary courage is less about summoning something and more about stopping the fight long enough to hear what you actually want to say.
Then stop fighting and say it. That is my point. You are not disagreeing with me. You are restating what I said in softer language.
I am saying something different. You say, stop fighting and choose. I am saying, stop fighting and listen. Those are not the same instruction.
And I would say, before you can truly listen, you have to know whose voice you are listening to. Is it your voice, or is it the voice of a wound that has not yet been named? That distinction matters enormously in practice.
It matters. But at a certain point, you have to trust that the voice you hear is close enough to your own to act on. You cannot wait for perfect clarity. That is a luxury no one actually has.
Here is what I notice. Every act of ordinary courage that I have witnessed happened not when the person was fully prepared, and not when they forced themselves past their fear. It happened when they stopped being somewhere else. They stopped rehearsing the aftermath. They stopped reviewing the history. They were just there, in the room, with the other person, and the thing that needed to be said simply came. Not because they were brave, because they were present.
That is a kind of grace, and I believe you. But most people are not capable of that presence without having done some prior work. The work is not endless, but it is real. You cannot simply arrive at presence by deciding to be present. The things that pull you away from presence have names, and they need to be faced before that kind of spontaneous honesty becomes available.
Then face them quickly and get on with it. I am not against self-examination. I am against self-examination as a permanent residence. You visit, you see what needs to be seen, and you leave. The house of your own psychology is not a place to live. It is a place to check before you walk into the room where the real work is. You have heard 3 arguments, and not one of them is wrong, but none of them is the thing you need to hear. Let us say what is actually true. Courage in ordinary life is not a feeling. It is not confidence. It is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to say or do the true thing when you can feel the pull toward the easier version of events. You face that pull every day, not in fires and battlefields, in offices, in kitchens, in the middle of ordinary Tuesday afternoons. Someone says something you know is wrong and you stay quiet. You agree with a decision you think will cause harm because it is easier than being the one who objects. You leave something unsaid in a relationship until it becomes something unsayable. Each of those moments is a small act of cowardice, not a catastrophic one. A quiet one. And quiet cowardice is still cowardice. Here is what you actually control. What you say, whether it is true, whether it reflects what you actually think and believe. You do not control how it is received. You do not control whether the other person is grateful or angry or cold. That is not your jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction is the content of what you bring to the room. This is not about being harsh or blunt. Truth can be spoken with care. But care is not the same as concealment. Today, find the one conversation you have been delaying. Not the hardest conversation of your life. Just the next one you have been avoiding. Do not rehearse it to perfection. Go and have it. Say the true thing, imperfectly, as you actually are right now. That is what ordinary courage looks like. Not spectacular, not painless, just true. The crisis you have been waiting for is not coming. This is it, right here, in the shape of your actual day. Every time you chose the easier version of the truth, you practiced a smaller version of yourself. Every time you said the true thing, however imperfectly, you practiced being someone you can actually live with. That is the only heroism ordinary life requires. Now go find the conversation. You already know which one it is. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebuchet, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.